Hi, my name is Johan from Wink, and our guest today is Celia Church from Smart Service Solutions. Celia, welcome. Where can people find you?
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. I'm really excited. If people are interested, I've got smartservicemi.com. That's how you find out more about me and my business.
Okay. Are you on any of the socials and stuff as well, or not really?
I'm a little behind, Johan. I'm behind on the times. I'm on Facebook. But that was a stretch already.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And so, what do you guys do? If I can just,
yeah.
for the people out there, I guess.
Yeah, we specialize in software consulting. So we help clients in the home service industry, business owners on, mastering their CRM systems, finding software solutions to help to automate parts of their process. So we have a really big focus on software and technology. So it's awesome.
In the trade specifically, or do you do a lot of different businesses?
Yeah, we primarily focus on the trades, but as you know, the trades is it's a large industry. So anything plumbing, HVAC, electrical, but all the way into, things like pest control, irrigation, that type of thing. So trade specific, which we love.
Okay. Now I see all the musical instruments behind you, so that seems a bit far away from the trades. How did you end up in the trades? Maybe share a little bit about the journey that brought you here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I started in the industry almost 7 years ago now. I lived in the Salt Lake City area and I started at a local plumbing and HVAC company, smaller service company. We had maybe five technicians in the field at the time. And I started doing things like dispatch and call taking. I feel like that's pretty common in the industry. It's a good way to get started in the office, but my time there, I've progressed into call center management and then really kind of specialized in my time working in home services on software systems, things like Service Titan, Zapier, dashboards, automation reporting, all that stuff.
Yeah, it feels like a lot has changed in the last, I guess, 10 years, but even 5 years or less. Like there's a lot of new tools. I mean, even us, Wink, is kind of new to Service Titan. We've been there only like 2 years, which is I don't know, in technology, that's maybe long, but it's not really long for most people.
Yeah, yeah.
So even in that short time, it feels like a lot has changed. Like, how do you feel the role of data has changed in this industry?
Yeah, I think, when I first got started in the industry, I mean, Service Titan, a big program really commonly used in our industry, was kind of still in its infancy. It was a pretty simple program. I mean, it was advanced comparatively to some of what else was out there at the time, but even in the time I've been using it, which now, I mean, almost 7 years, even Service Titan itself has changed drastically. All of like the AI that's come out in the last couple of years, the level of reporting that's involved, things like building reports in your CRM. I mean, when we first got started, that wasn't something that was possible, and now it is, which is great. But for some companies, that can almost be a little bit overwhelming on what to do, what to
Yeah.
pull, where to pull it. So, yeah, it's changed a lot.
Yeah. And so I guess the topic for today for us is profitability through data, which, to me it sounds really exciting, but we'll see how we cover this for people. So why do you think these changes are happening now? Why do you think people are seeing it as more important to use data and AI and all these things you mentioned to drive their profitability?
Yeah, I think that there's a big push in the industry just through the different networking groups. A lot of the companies that I work with, and even when I work directly in the industry, a lot of companies are involved in consulting organizations and networking groups and things like that. And so I think companies now more than ever are seeing the need through coaching and things along those lines to know their data more, whether it's like their financial data in their accounting software or better understanding their technicians' performance. I think now we have a really big drive to do really robust training in our organizations, training our team, not just technicians, though, training our office staff. And I think companies are realizing that in order to effectively train and coach in the organization, they have to know where to start. And really, you need data to pull that information and to understand what's the baseline and then what do we need to implement, to improve it. So,
Yeah, and I think you mentioned there, like, where do you start? That's kind of a big issue that we run into every day. Like, I think a lot of businesses have figured out that, yeah, I need something, but they don't even know where to go and where to start. And um, I remember, I mean, I saw you in Orlando a few months ago
Hmm.
between hurricanes, like,
That's right.
and um, we were out at a dinner with a client, someone using Service Titan, and I remember they had some very specific issues in things that they wanted to report on, but it seemed almost impossible because their business appeared to be set up the wrong way. They had the I remember you getting quite heated a little bit in that conversation
Yeah.
because it seemed like they've done everything backwards almost, right? So maybe talk around those, the common challenges that you see that businesses face when they're trying to get started or getting to the right data. What do you got to do first? Because people come to us and they want the end result, but they haven't done the work beforehand
Yeah.
to put in. So talk more about that and maybe how you guys fit in with that as well.
Yeah, I think with a program like Service Titan, but a lot of the other CRMs have the same foundation. I don't think a lot of organizations always realize that the data that you're going to pull from your CRM through reports and through the APIs and things like that, that data really starts with the call taking and the call booking process. So,
Yeah.
whenever a company implements a program like Service Titan, the implementation specialists, they will ask them a lot of questions about how the business runs, what type of trade lines do you service? And those questions are helping Service Titan to set up the program, right? Doing things like creating job types and business units. And all of those pieces of data are things that CSRs and dispatchers are using while they book jobs. And the thing that I don't think everybody realizes is how you set up those foundations in your settings in your CRM. All of that comes through and it trickles down into the reporting. So if we have something incorrect on the foundational level in the CRM, then the reporting becomes more challenging, it gets convoluted, and the data just becomes less accurate. So I think for me, with our organization, one of the major things that we do when we work with a client, before we can really do anything, we have to look at the CRM. We have to look at how job types are set up. Do we have role separation in the organization, CSRs dedicated to being CSRs and dispatchers doing dispatch? And that helps to understand, like, where is it going wrong, right? Is the data entry the problem? Are we putting customer information in incorrectly? Is the system set up wrong? So it really looks like an audit process, right? To try to figure out all the way back
Yeah.
to the beginning, how did this get set up? Why did it get set up? And now what changes do we need to make so that we can make it more accurate?
Yeah.
So it can be overwhelming for companies to find out that the system that they've been using for sometimes years wasn't really set up with data in mind. So we really help companies to figure that out and then to rectify it so that we can
Yeah.
correct the data.
And it's they spend a lot of money on it as well, probably.
Yeah, that's right.
And like you say, it's a big issue. And, in data, we always have this saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
right.
maybe a little bit rough,
Yeah.
but it really does. There's a knock on effect that if you have the foundation wrong, like you say, then you can't trust anything. And really, if you can't trust the data, then it's the whole project is going to be a failure. There's such a human element to it, even though we're all about, add more technology, add AI,
Yeah.
add reports, add Service Titan or whatever. But there's still such a big, well, not a problem, but a people need to be considered, right? Because it's
Yeah.
still a business. The business is made up of people. Can you maybe talk around, how do you handle that a little bit? How do you get buy-in from everyone in the company? Do you guys have to work a lot around that as well?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I think sometimes on a consultant level, oftentimes I'm meeting with an owner or leadership in the organization. And so when I'm speaking with them, I might give them direction on changes to make in their software or other software to bring on. And it might sound really great, right, when I'm explaining it to the leadership team, but then the leadership team has to go back and trickle that down into the organization. And sometimes there can be a break of communication there. So I
Yeah.
think usually it's most effective when I'm able to talk directly, whether that's like in a service meeting or, in an office meeting, and really get the why and explain the why behind any changes that we're making. A good example is some companies have their job types that are really vague. Instead of having specific problems a customer might be calling about, instead they might have a job type that just says service call. And there's really no information on what type of service call and why. So making big changes like that and telling a company, we need to break this out. We need to completely revamp how your CRM is set up can be a bit overwhelming. So really explaining it, showing them what it's supposed to look like and how the reports can be pulled, right? If we have the correct data, really helps to get buy-in. So it's all about education, really explaining to
Yeah.
the entire team the importance and how it can look, right, in the long run.
Yeah, and how it helps them, right? I'm assuming,
Yeah,
like, if you get one or two people on the floor to buy in and you make their life easier, then I
yeah,
think the buy-in is automatic, right?
absolutely right.
Yeah, I always say I just still do sales calls occasionally for Wink,
Yeah, yeah,
but I always tell the business, if I'm speaking to the business owner or someone high up, that, we don't want to just do boardroom reporting, like there. We want to do boardroom to the call floor, or the warehouse even, if you can give little bits of information to everyone on that ladder, then you get this bottom up effect, like you say. If the bottom guys can get an impact, because they might have like a fun leaderboard or scoreboard or something
yeah.
up on the thing, and they can you know brag to their friends and see how this helps them, then that data will be correct and it will flow up to the levels to the top.
That's right.
So yeah, are there any other challenges around this that you see trade businesses facing when it comes to getting the right data?
Yeah, I think right now, there's a lot of technology out there. There just is.
Yeah,
There's all kinds of different programs, even just on the CRM level. There's so many choices to make. So I think a lot of organizations might have a hard time trying to identify the software that they need. And I know in this industry, at least in my experience, we get like the shiny object syndrome. And even I'm like really guilty of that when I see a
I'm
new
a tech guy. It's
program.
even worse.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even like the hardware, right? New computers, new phones. It's tempting to want
Yeah,
to, have the newest, have the most up to date. And the features that, some of the companies have, it sounds great. The problem is, like we talked about with garbage in, garbage out, software is awesome and it's a really great tool, but it is a tool and, not every organization needs or is in the right place to be moving to something even like Service Titan, depending on the size of company, let's master the program that we currently have and let's make
yeah,
sure what we're doing in there is right before jumping to something even more complex. So, for me, I think when I work with an organization, it's about making sure that the foundation in that organization is really strong, that we have really great processes with the programs that we're using so that that's transferable, right, to all the other software that we use. So, for me, it's really making sure that the processes are in place, they're documented, they make sense so that when we implement more software, which are great, there's amazing tools out there, we've got to make sure that we have a really strong foundation before we jump into it.
yeah. I mean, every new piece of software will probably have its own little quirks, right? So
Yeah.
if you switch from one to the other, I remember reading years ago that Excel. Most people use less than 5% of the functionality
Yes.
in Excel. So I think you're right. The software you're already using probably can do what you want. It's just a matter of configuring it right or knowing that it's even there and
Yeah.
maybe adapting some of your processes. So so you kind of touched on it there. Get started on a specific, with what you have, I guess. So is that kind of the first step? Where do people start collecting data? Apart from just sending us an email or you an email,
Yeah.
where can they start generally?
Yeah, I think, and we've talked a bit about it already, but the CRM for a home service company in specific, that's the start. Every time a customer calls in, the first interaction that they have, a lot of times that interaction, that phone call is tracked in your CRM, and then every step of the process from the CSR through to the technician, all the way to the accounting team, a lot of that's taking place inside of the CRM. So for me, when we talk about foundations and setting it up properly, it really looks like making sure that every step of the customer's journey with the organization is done correctly, right? And the data is put in into the boxes that it belongs and that we understand how we've configured all of that. So I think if a company wants to get started with making sure that their data is accurate and pulling reports, it looks like making sure that our CRM has been configured properly. And if it is, making sure that we're training and coaching our team on all of the different information that gets put into that CRM from start to finish. Even technicians in the field taking pictures, right? Documenting job notes, correct invoicing, all of that ends up on the reports. So it's really important that we have these processes in place so that we're ready. And when we pull the report, we feel confident that it's accurate. And from there, it's kind of the sky's the limit, right? In a lot of these CRMs, a lot of reporting capabilities, but we've just got to make sure that each part of the team understands, that every action that they're making is being recorded, right? In some way, shape, or form. So
Yeah.
for me, it really looks like team training, right? Making sure they get it.
So, do you have any horror stories of where it went wrong when people didn't do it this way, the right way, or where a client was just so immovable that they didn't want to do the right things? Like, do you have some examples of how things can go wrong if your data isn't right?
Yeah, I do, unfortunately, right? I do have some. So
We all do.
for me, yeah, well, it's hard because, when I work with a new client, again, one of the first things we'll do is like an audit of the CRM system, and primarily it's Service Titan right now. It's one of the biggest CRMs in the industry, so we work with it really heavily, and we'll perform an audit, which really looks like combing through the settings, combing through reports, building some reports to try to verify things like conversion rates and average tickets. Is any of that stuff even correct when we're looking at those numbers? And most of the time, we find a lot of stuff that's not configured properly. And
Hmm.
so a lot of times I have companies that are, paying out things like performance bonuses and spiffs that are based on certain sales metrics, or, we're bonusing off of conversion rates, and then come to find out that a lot of that data wasn't even accurate in the first place. I think, it's really important that even when we find that type of stuff, right? That's just step one, moving past it and actually resolving it, going in and fixing some of that stuff so that in the future, we can rely on the data. But it's common. I mean, I don't I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever done an audit in a CRM that hasn't had, a
Gap.
lot of a lot
Yeah.
of challenging things that we
Yeah.
found.
Yeah. We are actually doing a lot of work at the moment with our automation module on price books for people.
Yeah.
So making sure that the price book is up to date.
Yeah.
We have some connections into vendor pricing, that we can just directly put in. The other thing we're doing is scanning vendor invoices and double checking that the pricing on the invoices matches the price book, and then allowing
Yeah.
people to either update it or dispute it. Because, like you say, those prices are wrong at that very first step, then suddenly your job costing is wrong. The profit margin on the jobs are wrong. The commissions you pay are wrong. It's just everything is wrong in the
Yeah.
business. And it's just from a little number on a line item on an invoice which you didn't notice went up or something, right? But you
Yeah.
ordered 20,000 feet of
That's right.
pipe or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So maybe if we haven't covered it already, talk about, so if you've done this audit and you've discovered things, how do you keep everything clean? Is there any strategies then that you can put in place to make sure that, yeah, the data stays reliable and it doesn't
Yeah.
drift off?
I think one of the hard things with some of the CRMs is, anytime we have humans involved in a process, there's always going to be parts of the process that aren't going to go, how we intend. Even when I was in the industry, I do training on CSRs and dispatchers and help companies build processes in those roles. But at the end of the day, when I was dispatching, I didn't do everything perfectly, right? When I booked jobs, I'm sure I've selected a wrong business unit here and there. So, it's going to happen in an organization. Is the data ever going to be 100%? No, probably not. But at the end of the day, people in leadership roles and even down to, CSRs and dispatchers themselves, there's got to be an audit process and there needs to be points throughout the process in the life cycle of a customer's job where we're double checking these things. So for us, it really looked like, a CSR books a job in our CRM. And when dispatch is ready to send a technician, one of the steps before we do that should be verifying the data, right? Is address correct? Is marketing campaign correct? Is the business unit the job type, right? And
Yeah.
then from there, on the accounting side, when we're ready to actually send some of that data to our accounting software, when we really need it to be correct, a second verification, right? So having those checks and balances, even though a lot of different people are involved in a job for one specific client, there's got to be checkpoints where it's built into the process, right? At this point with dispatch, we verify business unit. At this point with accounting, we verify business unit. That type of stuff. Will it be done every time? Probably not, but it really helps to keep the data accurate by the time we're at the end of the life cycle.
Do you use any automation tools around this sometimes, or is that for a different part of the business?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of automation that can help with this, even on the reporting side. When I'm working with a company, one of the first things I'll do is set up a recurring, report to look for $0 tickets. And the purpose of that is to try to identify, errors. We have a $0 ticket, but really it was a callback. And was it booked as a callback? Maybe not, right? So automation in reporting tools, can really, really help to at least speed up the verification process, right? Pull the errors into a report so that we can
Yeah,
correct
yeah,
them.
yeah. We call those exception reports, which
Yeah,
is you just set some rules, common sense rules, right? We have a commission report for a client. They've got very complicated commissions, but they run
yeah,
another report beforehand, which will just check like, hey, there's no splits on these jobs. They probably should be. Can you just double check those, and just
yeah,
make sure that those base assumptions are there. And it doesn't check the actual values. Well,
yeah,
I agree, but it highlights things, right? That humans can double check. Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
I remember speaking to you at one point. We were again talking about a customer,
Yeah,
and we were talking about how they want to predict the future, out of their reports. That's the dream that everyone wants. But you said something quite interesting, like you can't do that part first. You need to look back at, because your data tells a story. You need to see what that
yeah.
story is first. How do business owners uncover these stories? Like, what do you think are some good strategies, and how do you make sense of this raw data?
Yeah, I think the hard part with, software and all of these CRMs that have reporting capabilities is most of them, in my experience, we're pulling like one specific date range. Okay. So for example, if we're trying to look at, inbound call booking and call volume, when I pull that report in a CRM like Service Titan, I set a date range. And I pull the report, and what's on the report is what I get. But I think utilizing other tools and Wink Reports is a really great example of that. Being able to do an analysis where we're looking not just at one specific date range, but we're looking at something like year over year, right? I want to know if call booking rates have improved over last year versus this year, and built in by default to some of the CRMs, they just don't have that capability. But that's the type of story that I'm looking for, is really making sure that I understand, what happened last year and the year before compared to now. So I think when I introduce other software, to companies and I bring in tools like Wink Reports, that's the goal, is really to make sure that I understand the full story of the data.
Yeah, yeah. And I hope they never add it, because else we're out of a job.
Yes.
Not really.
Yes.
I mean, I think, like you said, there are so many ways that you can make sense of that data. And I think talking to someone like you who've got a lot of experience with that really does set up a business owner to succeed with this. Are there any specific strategies, I guess, then where you can really focus on profitability? I mean, what are, I guess, some early signs that you see when you go into a new client to that they are really that a business is starting to leverage that data effectively, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when I'm looking at a client's account, whether it's, from the accounting side of things or in their CRM directly, I'm looking for things like average ticket and conversion rates. And also, even outside of the data, really looking at processes, right? Because for me, building a process revolves around reporting and data. That's what I use to decide what the process should be. So for a profitable company, that looks like consistently pulling reports or utilizing dashboards to bring the reporting data right to you in a convenient way. And then taking that data and making great business decisions with it, right? So things like looking to lower costs, right? Understanding, where our labor is going and what we're going to do about it, understanding our, material cost and making great decisions on how to reduce cost where we can. All of that really looks at profitable companies. So I think pulling consistent reports, utilizing that data, having dashboards, all of that really leads towards a lot of productive stuff for a client.
Yeah. And I guess just aligning everyone in the business as well, right? I
Yeah.
think having a standard dashboard. I mean, we have a lot of clients who just put stuff up on the
Yeah.
in the office, right? So that everyone knows, hey, this is our goal this month. This is what we're all working towards. I really think that's a really big contributor to profitability as well.
Yeah. Well, I think accountability in general is for some kind of a scary word, but at the end of the day, in my experience, I think people like accountability, not consciously, but at the end of the day, everybody wants to know in their job that they're doing well, that they're succeeding at it. People want praise. And really, the best way to do that, from a leadership perspective, is to be utilizing data and to be measuring things. I think having dashboards, up on a TV in a break room, I think that stuff is great, and I think it motivates people because it's the accountability that they're looking for, and it really provides clarity for an organization. And people want clarity, right? Nobody wants to be
Yeah,
confused on what they're supposed to be doing and when they're supposed to be doing it and how far away we are from XYZ. So dashboards like that, projecting them up on the TV, it helps culture, it helps to provide
yeah, exactly.
clarity, and that's what
Culture.
people want.
Yeah. Um, okay, we've kind of covered, I think, most things. So let's kind of distill it down and sum up for people. So someone might be listening to this right now and going, "Okay, that sounds good. What's my next step?" And apart from calling you or calling us, what are the first steps, I guess, on someone's data-driven profitability journey?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first step, really looks like knowing your CRM. I mean, it doesn't get any more simple than that. And what that looks like, for an actionable item, looks like knowing what reports even exist in there and then understanding where that information is coming from. So when I learned Service Titan, in the time that I've worked with it, it really looks like pulling reports and then looking into those KPIs and understanding what part of the system that data even comes from. And that's what helps you to make sure it's correct. So for any organization that's wanting to get started, they're not sure what reports to even be pulling. Most CRMs have a really great dashboard just built in that you can start with and understanding the data that's on it, right? Most of the
Yeah.
time, you're going to be seeing revenue and conversion rates and things along those lines. So understanding those numbers, what they are, and how the CRM calculates it, so that way we can take it a step forward and we can start making awesome decisions based off of what we're looking at.
Yeah. So start at the basics and start in that tool. And then over time, you
Yeah.
can grow it out, right? And use other tools like Wink if you need to merge data
Yes.
from different places together and kind of get those future insights.
Yeah.
Anything else that you wanted to say on this topic? I think we're almost done with time. Any last comments, Celia? Or
No, no, I don't think so. I think this has been great.
yeah, no, thank you very much for joining me today. Just again for people, where can they find you? I think the website is smartservicemi.com. We'll put it on the screen here. That's the best place, right?
Yep, that's perfect.
Awesome. I think it's Thanksgiving for you guys soon, so happy
It
Thanksgiving.
is. Thank
And
you.
yeah, I really appreciate your time today. And yeah, I can't wait till we get you on again and we'll dig into some more topics. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's really great.
Bye bye.